Okay, so we are doing a review for Hyperion. I finished the book last night and I loved it. I'm going to do a review and ranking of all the stories. So I'll start with some spoiler-free thoughts about the book overall, and then I'll move into the ranking of the stories themselves, which will probably contain some spoilers. It's said to be like one of the most highly rated sci-fi books of all time. I've seen so many people say that it's like their favorites, and I can definitely see why after reading it. It actually shares a lot of comparisons with Dune. They're very, very different, but they share similarities. Like in the setup of the world, this kind of empire that spans like the galaxy and solar system, and there's like hundreds of colonized worlds out there. But despite this, the story all takes place on a world that's almost outside of the Empire's control. The book starts off with a very cool premise, I thought. So we have these 7 pilgrims that are chosen to take this pilgrimage to Hyperion, this kind of outback world. An outback world is a world that they call that's not part of the hegemony. And this world is like the fascination of many of the characters and people in the book, because it contains the mythical creature, the Shrike, which we'll get into later on. But every pilgrim has like their own reason for going there, and throughout the journey of the book, each pilgrim, so there's 7 of them, and they're on this ship going there, but throughout their journey, each one recalls their tale of why they are going to Hyperion. And yeah, this was quite an amazing structure that really worked for the book. Usually I would prefer just a more traditional narrative where we follow a few different POV characters. This book is almost like a prelude, because the plot is very sparse. The plot is basically these 7 pilgrims traveling to Hyperion, or traveling to the time tombs rather. And then in between each one story, we get like a little bit of the plot, like a chapter or so, and then it goes back to the POVs of these pilgrims. So we don't get much of a plot if you don't include their backstories, but it's not really something you can complain about, because the stories themselves were just really engrossing, really captivating. We have some really heavy themes as well in this book, and personally I love thematically like heavy themes, which is why I'm loving my sci-fi binge so much. There's like evolution, technology, and some of my favorites in this book particularly, which was religion and time. And I love so much how time affected the entire plot of the story in the book, and how it affected the characters and the decisions of the hegemony and stuff like that. And I've never seen it explored to this depth in like a series before, so that was really amazing. The characters are also a standout, I think. It really gets you emotionally invested in many of the characters. Not all, but many. And I think for most people, myself included, The Scholar's Tale was probably the most emotional out of all of them. Some great characterization, and you really felt connected and really concerned for the situation that they're in. Again, it's very unique to this book. I don't think I've seen anything quite like it before. The world building, one of my favorite aspects, again, was like incredible. The way it's handled is really clever as well. So we get the world building through these pilgrim stories, and each pilgrim is very different. So we have like the detective, the consul, the soldier, the priest, the scholar, and I can't remember the other one. But they're like on different worlds doing completely different things. The stories are kind of told in different genres as well. So it just feels really unique. And for each story you see like a completely different side of the world and different world building, or you're revealed, there's like a lot revealed about the world. Like we see in the detective's tale, we learn like so much about the AIs. Or in the priest tale, we see like some weird, like very creative locations or geography. I believe he's on Hyperion, but the forest flames just sounded so weird. Or like a grass sea. Like, this book is so imaginative. It's really cool. And you know what happens a lot with sci-fi books when I'm reading them? I'm kind of mixed, like, whilst I'm reading them, and I think about it in retrospect, and I'm like, wow, that was really, like, incredible. And that happened a little bit here. Because like I said, some stories I absolutely loved, and others I just really liked. But then looking back, the way how the entire story weaves together, and he's created this kind of narrative that all fits well, is a very impressive feat. And the writing is just really strong. He's really able to utilize a lot of different like writing styles, which kind of makes sense. Dan Simmons is known not only for his sci-fi, but he makes other works as well. Like, apparently he's really good at horror. This is my first book that I've read by him, but I can see the horror elements in this book because the Shrike monster legend is actually terrifying because it's just this absolute malevolent force of nature that it's not understood, and it's just like all powerful. And one of the things we fear the most is the unknown, and that's why they have this cult that develops around the Shrike. And so everyone kind of in the story kind of views the Shrike in different ways. Like, this cult thinks it's the final atonement of man for our sins, and it's come back to purge humanity or something like that. And then like the hegemony thinks that they can use the Shrike for their own ends and stuff like this. But the Shrike is very esoteric and just a complete enigma. I feel like I've talked about spoiler-free enough. Basically, go read this book, it's incredible. I wouldn't say it's for everyone though. If you're really into sci-fi, then it's a must read. I wouldn't really call it hard sci-fi. Oh, it's kind of confusing actually. I would say it's more one of the dense sci-fi books that I've been reading. One of the things that kind of took me a long time to wrap my head around was the terminology in the book. Sometimes I was kind of confused because there's so much that Dan Simmons just throws at you. In a kind of similar vein to Dune, but there's like the hegemony of man, there's the AI, there's the technical, there's the all thing, there's the world web, there's like hundreds of worlds, and it's all these words and used in context that I just like, what's going on? Sometimes they explain it, and sometimes you can infer from the speech. But I found it particularly, actually for the most part it was okay, but some stories, I think the detective story I found to be kind of confusing. Yeah, overall, the story is just wonderfully unique, and I think it's because of the structure of the story, the fact that we see so many different places and these completely different characters. There's also a great like mystery to the book, because we find out more of these characters' backstories and see how their stories are kind of interlinked in small ways. The cover for this book is just awesome. It's like part of the reason I bought these books, because the covers are so cool. But I don't think I'm going to go into Fall of Hyperion straight away, which I probably should, because I think Dan Simmons himself describes this book as like, he describes these two books as like one book, so kind of like a part one and a part two. This one drops the structure of like the 6 short kind of stories, tales, and takes it on a more traditional narrative. But yeah, time for the rankings. What did I think of the stories?